Hi, I'm Caroline Weaver, and you are on week 27 of the spiritual exercises. We're going slowly through the Last Supper, and the whole point is to be with Jesus. I'm going to give you some background, and I don't want that background to interfere with you experiencing Jesus, but sometimes visualizing the scene, it's easier. I just spent the last hour and a half just preparing something, just putting it together. Yesterday I talked about how the room would have been in a affluent home, upper room, because two-story homes were only with affluent people. I said a little bit about the Passover meal being commemorated every spring, and what would be at the Passover meal. We talked about the Passover lamb being slaughtered, and there would be unleavened bread, vegetables, herbs, vinegar, and 4 ritual cups of wine. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the order of the guests, because that's pretty significant in this story about Judas. It's indicated that Judas was the honored guest, because in that U-shaped position, the host, Jesus, would have taken the second position from the end, with the most honored guest reclining to his right, and the other guests positioned in order of declining stature to his left. And so it's when we talk about him offering the bread, they would have been sharing, dipping in the bowl and offering the bread. In this passage today, it would have been Judas that he would have been the honored guest. So there's something really significant about that. We don't know that for sure, but I wanted to point that out, just that Jesus was offering a friendship to Judas, was dipping in the bowl and offering it to him too. That was a last gesture of friendship, and Judas didn't take it, obviously, because he left and betrayed. So I wanted to do a little bit more background about the Passover. Just the food as well. I'm going to read this because I want to get it right. The food, as well as the prayers and rituals surrounding the meal, recall the Israelites' last evening meal in Egypt before the day of their liberation from bondage. And the course of the Passover meal was marked by the blessing and drinking of the 4 ritual cups of wine, each of which would be accompanied by prayers, the singing of psalms, ritual hand washing, and the recitation of one of the 4 parts of Exodus 6, 6 and 7. So I'll read that. I am the Lord, and I will free you from the burdens of the Egyptians and deliver you from slavery to them. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. You shall know that I am the Lord your God, who has freed you from the burdens of the Egyptians. So there were 4 ritual cups. So there were 2 cups, and there was rituals. There was washing of hands. If you ever are able to do a Passover, it's really powerful, especially when you look at the unleavened bread and Jesus being broken for us. That's really, and we'll do a little bit more of that when Jesus breaks the bread and hands it to people. But today, just to let you know that they're eating supper, and the supper was between the 2nd and 3rd cups of wine. And then it's believed, just parenthetically, the meal was eaten between the 2nd and 3rd cups, and so after the meal, the remaining unleavened bread would have been blessed, broken, and eaten. And then the 3rd ritual cup of wine would be blessed. And the 3rd part of Exodus 6:6 would be recited, known as the redemption cup. That's the 3rd ritual cup, and is the one we most often associate with the institution that Jesus instituted, the Last Supper. So just to let you know that where we are is between that 2nd and 3rd cup. And So I will, because the meal, they're eating the meal. So it is, I'm going to combine Matthew 26:21 through 25 with John 13:21 through 38. So yesterday he washed their feet, and now he is going to identify Judas as the betrayer, and he is in the honored seat. That's a real significant thing, something that I just learned actually. I'm sure it's been in the margin of this book forever, but I just had never noticed it. So I invite you to close your eyes, to breathe slowly, and to recenter your scattered senses on the presence of God. Bringing your whole self, relaxing your body, finding a position that's comfortable, yet where you can remain alert as you imagine the scene. And then also if there is anything swirling around in your mind, to also relax your mind in God's presence. He will take care of everything that you're thinking about. With your whole body, your whole mind, and your whole heart, fixing your gaze on God and His presence, knowing that He's fixing His gaze on you and looking upon you with love. He's here. Receive His loving gaze and become aware of His presence. Lord, we pray that more of our day would be directed to your service and praise. And Lord, we do pray for the grace to feel sorrow with you, Jesus, in your sorrow in this Last Supper. So Jesus has just washed their feet and talked about, he who eats my bread has lifted up his heel against me. And then he said, truly, truly, I say to you, he who receives whomever I send receives me. And he who receives me receives him who sent me. And so when Jesus had said this, he became troubled in spirit. And as they were eating, he said, truly, truly, I say to you, that one of you will betray me. And then the disciples began looking at one another, at a loss to know of which one he was speaking. And then Jesus, being deeply grieved, they each said, surely not I, Lord. And he answered and said, he who dipped his hand with me in the bowl is the one who will betray me. The Son of Man is to go just as it is written of him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born. There was reclining on Jesus' breast one of his disciples whom Jesus loved. Simon Peter therefore gestured to him and said to him, tell us who it is of whom he is speaking. He, leaning thus on Jesus' breast, said to him, Lord, who is it? Jesus therefore answered, That is the one for whom I shall dip the morsel and give it to him. So that when he had dipped the morsel, he took and gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. And Judas, who was betraying him, answered and said, Surely it is not I, Rabbi. He said to him, You have said it yourself. And after the morsel, Satan then entered into him. Jesus therefore said to him, What you do, do quickly. Now no one of those reclining at the table knew for what purpose he had said this to him. For some were supposing, because Judas had the money box, that Jesus was saying to him, Buy the things we have need of for the feast, or else that he should give something to the poor. And so after receiving the morsel, he went out immediately, and it was night. And therefore he had gone out. When therefore he had gone out, Jesus said, Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him immediately. Little children, I am with you a little while longer. You shall seek me, and as I said to the Jews, I now say to you also, Where I am going, you cannot come. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, where are you going? Jesus answered, Where I go, you cannot follow me now, but you shall follow later. Peter said to him, Lord, why can I not follow you right now? I will lay down my life for you. Jesus answered, Will you lay down your life for me? Truly I say to you, a cock shall not crow until you deny me 3 times. So imagine the room, that upper room, wonderfully furnished with oil lamps, servants serving you. Judas seated as the guest of honor, and John on the other side reclining at Jesus' breast. And you're eating the meal. What does it taste like? The lamb, vegetables, the haricot, which is to look like the mortar, apples and raisins and cinnamon, that sweet haricot. Taste it all. And then hear and look at Jesus. Look at what it looks like for Jesus to be troubled in spirit. You had been enjoying a meal, had been blown away by Jesus washing your feet before the meal. But yet he looks troubled in spirit. How do you feel about that? And I'm assuming you can be a disciple or a servant in the room, but just look at Jesus' face. And then hear Jesus say, Truly, truly, I say to you, that one of you will betray me. And look at the disciples, or if you're a disciple, See them looking at one another, at a loss to know of which person, which disciple is Jesus speaking about. How do you feel? Look at the shock on everybody's faces. And the grief, the deep grief, to think that someone would betray their Lord. And each one began to say, "Surely not I, Lord." And hear Jesus say, "He who dipped his hand with me in the bowl is the one who will betray me." And the Son of Man is to go just as it is written of him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born. Look at the look on Jesus' face as he says that, deeply grieved. What does his face look like? Now look at Judas. What does his face look like? Is it the look of shame? Denial? What does he look like? And then see John reclining at Jesus' breast, and Peter gesturing to John and saying, "Tell us who it is of whom he is speaking." And then John leaning against Jesus' breast, saying, "Lord, who is it?" And Jesus answering, "This is the one for whom I shall dip the morsel and give it to him." So, when he had dipped the morsel, see Jesus dipping the food, and see him take it and give it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. This was his final extension of grace to Judas. A host giving a morsel of bread to a guest was a sign of friendship. Look at Judas's face as he says, "Surely it is not I, Rabbi." And hear Jesus, look at his face when he says, face to face with Judas, "You have said it yourself." What do you feel? How do you feel about hearing those words from Jesus? And then look at Judas's face as Satan enters him. What does he look like? And then see Jesus look at him face to face and say, "What you do, do quickly." And then look at the surprise on all the disciples' face, because they didn't know for what purpose Jesus said this to Judas. And they were thinking in their minds, maybe Jesus was saying, "Buy the things we have need of," or "Give something to the poor." So they were still confused. So look at the look of confusion. And how do you feel? And then see Judas take that morsel and go out immediately into the night. See him go into the night, leaving that lighted room with the brazier fire and the oil lamps, and going from that lighted room into the darkness of the night. Feel what the disciples must have felt, confused, and what would Judas have been feeling? And how do you feel? And now hear Jesus say, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and will glorify him immediately. Little children, I am with you a little while longer. You shall seek me, and as I said to the Jews, I now say to you also, where I am going you cannot come. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Ponder you sitting in the room and hearing Jesus say that. Judas is just left, lacking in love. But yet, your charge is to love the remaining people in that room. And then, look at the confusion on Peter's face as he says, "Lord, where are you going?" And Jesus looking Peter in the face, "Where I go, you cannot follow me now, but you shall follow later." And Peter said to him, "Lord, why can I not follow you right now? I will lay down my life for you." Look at his sincerity on his face. And then look at Jesus' face looking back at Peter. "Will you lay down your life for me? It's certain, truly, truly, I say to you, a cock shall not crow until you deny me 3 times." So let's just sit with that. Imagine yourself, continue to imagine yourself in that upper room and all that Jesus has said, and ponder it in your heart. And look at Jesus in his face. What is his look? And look at Jesus' face and talk to him about all that he has said, all that you have experienced in this upper room. Tomorrow, we'll meditate on what happens between the 3rd and 4th cup. But today, sit with what just happened with Judas, and what just happened with Peter, and what just happened with you, with him saying, love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. So much to talk to Jesus about. Talk to him face to face in the upper room. Be blessed.